Chapter 1. Wang Chong knew that this was his final destiny in this world. The death of the barbarians is not as great as the death of the Xia dynasty. This was a sentence from the Luan language. Wang Chong had never imagined that in this distant universe, the Xia dynasty would really be destroyed. And he was the final witness of this scene. The sky was burning and the earth was trembling. Countless corpses piled up like mountains and seas, and fresh blood flowed like rivers. Wang Chong could even see the thick aura of death rising from the ground. Those were the corpses of the millions of citizens of the Xia dynasty. From all directions, countless non-human cavalries were slowly encircling them like an ocean. No one knew where these foreign cavalry came from, and no one knew why they were constantly destroying this world. They only knew that 10 years ago, these foreign cavalry, which were filled with the thick aura of death, appeared out of nowhere. Moreover, in just a few short years, they destroyed all the empires as easily as breaking dry weeds and smashing rotten wood. With the appearance of these foreign cavalry, the entire land began to tremble, and the earth began to collapse and be destroyed. Millions of living beings were reduced to bones. And now, what Wang Chong led was the final military force of this world. In the center of this ocean, Wang Chong led the final army of the Central Plains like duckweed, awaiting his final fate. After so many years of hardship, Wang Chong thought that his heart had been tempered to be strong enough. But when this fated moment arrived, Wang Chong's heart couldn't help but tremble. Sorrow, pain, and despair surged in his heart, but it wasn't for himself. Instead, it was for the brothers beside him, as well as the final fate of this Central Plains that was connected to him by blood. General, please forgive me for leaving first. It isn't your fault that we have come this far. General, you have already done your best. There's no need to be sad. Our brothers have long come to this realization. We didn't throw the face of the Tang dynasty. To be able to accompany General in this life has been worth it. General, let us meet again in the next life. Brats of the foreign races, come. Let us fight again. Familiar figures dashed past him one after another, letting out hearty laughs, then resolutely and decisively dashed into the ocean of non-humankind armies like moths flying into a flame. Farewell, my dearest brothers. I will be reuniting with all of you soon. Wang Chong's eyes were finally overwhelmed by tears as he looked at those figures, which were like blooming epiphyllum blooming in the middle of the night. Wang Chong wasn't a soul of this world. In fact, if there were no accidents, he should still be enjoying the sunshine and rain in another space-time continuum. After completing his university life, he should be living a peaceful life. However, 30 years ago, a mysterious meteor suddenly appeared and brought him into a world that was similar to the Great Tang in Chinese history, yet completely different. He became a 15-year-old son of a family of generals. When he first arrived here, he was once rebellious and hesitant. He felt that he didn't fit in with everything here and thought that everything had nothing to do with him. But when a great calamity swept through the world, those who loved him and those he loved died one by one. Only then did Wang Chong suddenly wake up and have the heart to advance forward. But it was too late. In this world, Wang Chong had experienced many things. Wandering from place to place for more than 10 years, he had lost the best chance of cultivation in his life. It was only due to fate that a few seniors of the empire took a liking to him because of the military commanding skills he had accumulated from playing strategy games in his previous life. They poured all of their vitality into him, making him the last grand marshal of the empire in the calamity, shouldering the last hope of the Central Plains. But it was too late. He had missed out on too many things. Even though he had done his best, he still failed. Wang Chong slowly closed his eyes, his heart filled with sorrow. He wasn't afraid of death, but he couldn't die yet. He was still waiting. There was one person that he couldn't let rest in peace even if he died if he didn't kill him. He was the culprit behind all of this. If not for him, the empire wouldn't have weakened to such an extent. Wang Chong was filled with hatred. Only blood could wash away the boundless hatred in his heart. But the other party was too cunning. He never showed himself easily, nor did he give Wang Chong a chance. But this time, when he used himself as bait to appear in this dangerous valley, Wang Chong knew that the other party wouldn't be able to resist appearing. The other party had been in hiding for more than 30 years, but this time, when victory was at hand, he wouldn't hide anymore. Wang Chong, give up. I've already spoken to the great king. As long as you're willing to surrender, I'll spare your life. Suddenly, a voice sounded from afar. Behind the vast army of foreign cavalry, a plump and trembling figure cautiously peeked out half his head. His eyes were gleeful, but they were tinged with fear and apprehension. He wasn't a cowardly person, but only the heavens knew why the fellow before him was so formidable. Even though he didn't have many soldiers on him, he was able to kill 10 times his number of enemies. Even though he had only been in control of the Central Plains for a few short years, the number of foreign warriors who had died in his hands was more than the total number of foreign warriors from the past few decades. If not for his fear of this fellow, he wouldn't have hidden for so long. Traitor! Wang Chong stared at the figure with hatred in his eyes. If not for someone guiding them and colluding with them, how could these foreign cavalry cause so much destruction and conquer so many lands in such a short period of time? And all of this was thanks to him. Wang Chong, as expected of the god of war of the Central Plains. For a profligate scion of the Wang clan to become the Grand Marshal of the Central Plains is truly inconceivable. If those old men had picked you 30 years ago, they would have chosen you as their heir. Perhaps the Wang clan had not fallen back then, and the Central Plains might really have a chance. But unfortunately, it's all too late. The figure was proud of himself. Wang Chong, let me give you a word of advice. You are a talented person. The king has already said that as long as you submit to him, he will spare your life and turn you into one of them. How about it? Think about it carefully. However, Wang Chong didn't seem to hear anything. Kong Yaoyuishan. Wang Chong called out his real name, his eyes spitting fire of hatred. He had been waiting for this moment for so long. In the end, the despicable fellow couldn't help but show himself. Let's die together with the Tang dynasty. The earth rumbled, and a majestic halo shot out from Wang Chong's spear. In an instant, it was as if a dazzling sun had appeared in the world, so dazzling that people couldn't even open their eyes. Retreat, retreat. The sight of Wang Chong's appearance caused the tens of thousands of foreign cavalry to explode with panic and retreat like a tide. Protect Lord Divine Emissary. A few foreign experts reacted and gathered at Kong Yaoyuishan's side, exploding with halos and black flames. But it was too late. Rumble. A blazing light that caused the world to change color fell from the sky like a meteor, instantly enveloping the hundreds of foreign experts and the figure in their midst. You! There was a short and piercing scream. That chubby face twisted in fear in that towering light, and then it was reduced to ashes. Even in death, he had never imagined that Wang Chong, who was at the end of his rope, would still use his full strength to attack him. Resentment, struggle, but none of them were a match for that invincible spear. I've finally succeeded. At this moment, Wang Chong was filled with an indescribable joy. Father, mother, and all the living beings of the Central Plains, you can all rest in peace. As death approached, Wang Chong's mouth curled into a faint smile. He looked at the countless spears piercing towards him with relief. Rumble. In the final instant, Wang Chong completely detonated his dantian, causing the thousands of foreign cavalry around him to sink into oblivion. It was said that the moment before death would be incomparably long. Who would have thought that it was true? Wang Chong smiled sadly, but his heart was incomparably calm. After so many years, he could finally be free. However, in the depths of his heart, there was a deep pain. In a split second, Wang Chong suddenly thought of his grandfather, third uncle, parents, eldest brother, second brother, and cousin. If only he hadn't been so willful back then. If only he had come to his senses in time, stepped forward bravely, and used his talent in the art of war to protect this family and this land, how good would that have been? It was all too late now. All the people who loved him and the people he loved had all left. All the people he loved deeply and loved deeply had left him. If he could start over, he would never do that again. Unfortunately, it was all too late. From now on, the Central Plains would become the hunting ground of the foreign cavalry. 1,000 years later, no one would know that there was a race called Yan Huang in this world, and a land called the Tang Dynasty? Wang Chang's heart was filled with regret, dejection, and unwillingness. It shouldn't be like this. Tears of regret flowed from the corners of Wang Chang's eyes. If he could start over again and make up for those regrets, he was willing to give up everything, everything. Rumble. As this thought flashed through Wang Chang's mind, thunder suddenly rumbled in the depths of the sky. At the moment when his life was about to be extinguished, in the depths of the darkness, Wang Chong suddenly saw a vigorous shooting star. Wasn't this the shooting star that brought him to this world? Host has awakened, activating destiny energy. A mechanical voice rang in Wang Chong's ears, devoid of any emotion. Child of destiny. He is the child of destiny. Stop him. The terrified cries of countless foreign cavalry came from the darkness. For the first time, these foreign beings who didn't know what death was showed deep fear and reverence. However, Wang Chong didn't know any of this. His vision turned black, and Wang Chong completely sank into oblivion. Why are you called a transmigrator? After what seemed like a split second, but also like countless long centuries, Wang Chong was suddenly awakened by a curious voice. The voice seemed to be near yet far, and it was as clear as a silver bell, carrying with it a sense of innocence and immaturity. Like a stone falling into a lake, countless ripples spread through Wang Chong's consciousness. Who was it? Whose voice was that? Didn't they say that death was like a lamp going out? Why could he still hear it? Could it be a hallucination? Just as Wang Chong was thinking, he suddenly heard an unhappy snort. Before Wang Chong could react, he felt something poke his body. There was a finger. Wang Chong immediately realized what was going on. If a person was dead, where would his body come from? Could it be that he wasn't dead yet? As this thought flashed through his mind, Wang Chong's heart suddenly surged with great waves. With great effort, Wang Chong opened his eyes. Soon, a bright ray of light shot into his eyes. Facing the light, everything in front of him turned from dark to bright. Not far from him, Wang Chong saw a little girl about 10 years old. She was pouting and looking at him with dissatisfaction. Who told you to ignore me? The little girl poked Wang Chong with her slender finger again. Little sister? Wang Chong looked at her in disbelief. The little girl's eyebrows were like crescent moons, her eyes were bright, and her skin was white with a tinge of red. Paired with a pair of silver-red leather pants, she looked like a jade sculpture. However, the two braids on her head that looked like firecrackers betrayed her mischievous nature. Who else could it be other than his youngest sister? But hadn't his little sister already? Wang Chong stared in front of him in a daze, his mind completely unable to react. Hadn't he already died? He clearly remembered that at the last moment, in order to assassinate Kang Yaluoshan, he had resolutely charged into the endless horde of foreign soldiers. How could he see his little sister here? And his little sister was so young. She clearly looked like she was 10 years old. He was only 5 years older than his little sister. If his little sister was 10 years old, then wouldn't he be? Wang Chong raised his arm. Very quickly, Wang Chong saw a pair of thin, white, and tender arms. This was completely different from what he remembered. In that instant, Wang Chong was speechless. Could it be that he had been reborn? Wang Chong's heart was filled with joy, apprehension, and more than anything else, worry. Little sister, pinch me, Wang Chong suddenly said. As soon as he said those words, Wang Chong saw a fair and tender hand stretching toward him. A faint white ripple appeared around the hand. These faint ripples condensed and did not dissipate. They were like steel and iron, giving off an extremely powerful feeling. Origin Energy Tier 9. Wang Chong's heart twitched. This faint white ripple was the symbol of an Origin Energy Tier 9 expert. How could he have forgotten that his little sister was talented from a young age, and she was a Hercules with unparalleled strength? Wasn't he asking for trouble if he allowed her to pinch him to wake him up? Little sister, don't. Wang Chong's face warped. He wanted to stop her, but it was already too late. Kacha, a crisp sound echoed, and Wang Chong felt as if his radius had been broken. Little sister, let go. Hearing Wang Chong's scream, The little girl stuck out her tongue in embarrassment and retracted her finger. "Little brother, you can't blame me. You're the one who asked me to do this." The little girl stuck out her tongue as she spoke. She had no intention of apologizing at all. Wang Chong smiled bitterly, as expected of the little sister in his memory. She was talented, able to lift mountains, and her unstoppable strength wasn't something an ordinary person could withstand. However, even as he rubbed his aching wrist, Wang Chong was overjoyed. There was pain, perception, and sight. This meant that he wasn't hallucinating. He was really still alive. Could it be that the heavens really heard my voice? At this moment, Wang Chong's heart was filled with complicated emotions. "Third brother, it's not that I want to criticize you. Stop interacting with that bastard Ma Zhou in the future. That fellow isn't a good person. He caused third brother to be taught a lesson by father, and others even said that he abducted a lady. Does my third brother need to abduct a lady? That bastard. The next time I see him, I'll definitely teach him a lesson. Every time I see him, I'll beat him up." On the other side, the little girl seemed to have thought of something. She suddenly furrowed her eyebrows and looked furious. Her two terrifying little hands were clenched so tightly that they made cracking sounds. It was obvious that her resentment wasn't small. "Little sister." Hearing his little sister's sincere voice, Wang Chong's nose turned sour. Hugging his little sister Wang Yao, his heart was incomparably touched. This was his little sister, the little sister who loved her brothers so much. Unfortunately, back then he was too much of a bastard and couldn't feel it. Only when he lost her did he feel regret. In this life, even if the heavens gave him another chance, no matter what, he wouldn't let his little sister encounter those things again. "Little sister, thank you. But there's no need. I'll personally deal with that bastard Ma Zhou," Wang Chong said softly. Wang Yao was startled. She raised her head from Wang Chong's embrace. Her big eyes reflected Wang Chong's eyes, and her eyes were filled with surprise. "This third brother of hers seems to be different today. Looking at how sloppy he usually was and how he made friends with a bunch of scoundrels, he didn't seem like someone who would say such words." "That's right, third brother, you still haven't told me. What is a transmigrator? What does transmigrator mean? How come I've never heard of it before?" Wang Yao thought of something. Her big round eyes stared at Wang Chong. There were two big question marks in her eyes. In the end, she still hasn't said what she cared about the most. Wang Yao was quite dissatisfied with Wang Chong's actions. Even if Wang Chong's skin was thick, hearing his little sister's words, he couldn't help but rub his nose with a face of embarrassment. Regarding the transmigrator joke, it was when he first transmigrated from another universe to this world. At that time, his heart was filled with resentment. He was not used to everything and didn't know anyone. He only felt that he was a hurried passerby in this world, like an illusory bubble. Coincidentally, he saw this braided, arrogant, and very fun little sister of his running to find him and calling him third brother. In a moment of childishness, he teased her and made her call him transmigrator. However, his little sister took his joke seriously. Time and time again, she asked him, "What is a transmigrator?" Thinking about it carefully, it should be this time. Thinking about this joke, Wang Chong felt extremely awkward in his heart. This transmigrator, it means a handsome guy. Handsome guy? Little sister's eyes widened, and she was even more confused. It means a handsome little brother. Wang Chong laughed loudly. "Little brother, you lied to me." Little sister instantly flew into a rage. Although she was young, she wasn't so easy to lie to. "Little sister, I suddenly remembered, I'm afraid father will be back soon. You should hurry back, otherwise you'll be in trouble if you're discovered." Wang Chong felt cold sweat in his heart and hurriedly changed the topic. Little sister's thoughts were pure. Although she trusted him, if she found out that he was lying to her, with her astonishing strength, she would fly into a rage, and he would probably suffer. Little sister's cheeks puffed up, her anger difficult to dissipate. She was young, but she wasn't so easy to lie to. Little brother obviously wasn't telling the truth. Wang Chong coaxed and lied, and finally managed to trick her away with great difficulty. However, when she left, she was furious, clearly very dissatisfied. Father will be back in a while. Mother told me to call you and tell you to remember to go to the main hall to eat later. Rumble. Hearing these words, as if a thunderbolt flashed through his mind, Wang Chang's heart suddenly shivered. Little sister said, and angrily walked out of the door. Wang Chong touched his forehead, feeling a cold sweat on his hand. He really thought that she sneaked in. She may have deceived father, but she couldn't escape mother's discerning eyes. However, it wasn't surprising at all. With little sister's ability, how could she escape from Buddha's five-finger mountain? After little sister left, Wang Chong closed the door, leaned his back against the wall, and raised his head slightly, staring at the high roof. His expression was slightly cold, and his expression slowly calmed down. What happened today was too strange. He needed time to think about it. The scene before his death once again floated in his mind, and the meteor that he saw at the end also slowly became clear. Some distant memories seemed to have been forgotten, but at this time, they became clear. Wang Chong remembered clearly that in 2022, on Earth, on a blazing summer day, he was walking on the streets when he was struck by a meteor, and he was brought to this foreign world. Back then, when he transmigrated here, he thought that he would receive some benefits of transmigrating, but in reality, he was just an ordinary person. Even at the moment of his death, other than his identity as the son of a general, he looked no different from any other ordinary human. That meteor, that mysterious meteor, other than bringing him to this foreign world far away from his own universe, didn't show any other miracles. Who could have thought that at the moment of his death, it would suddenly appear again? Is it resentment? Or is it indignation at the very end? Wang Chang's heart was in turmoil. No matter what, he had really gone back in time. He had really returned to 30 years ago. That year, he was 15, and his little sister was 10. The Central Plains was welcoming the most prosperous and powerful era in its history. Regardless of whether it was the Qin dynasty or the Great Han dynasty, there had never been a dynasty that expanded its territory to such an extent. From the east to the East Sea, from the west to the Pamir Mountains, from the south to Jiaoji, and from the north to the Yin Mountains, all of them belonged to the empire. With an army of 600,000, the Tang dynasty stabilized the Central Plains, suppressing all of the Hu and barbarian countries by the borders. The army was filled with brilliant generals, and it was said that there were 100 generals shining at the same time. Even the Hu submitted to this massive empire. In just a few decades, the empire's territory continued to expand, and it finally reached its current state. Without a doubt, this was the center of the world. This was the most powerful era in the Central Plains. And that person in the royal palace was also known as the Holy Emperor in the Central Plains. In the Central Plains, everyone was filled with complacency, and there was a sense of pride everywhere. But other than Wang Chong, no one knew that beneath its powerful exterior, the empire was in the midst of a decline, on the path of decline. Under the illusion of the Golden Age, horses and bows were useless, and there were countless dangers within. On the plateau to the west of the Tang dynasty, Uzun was rapidly rising, entering his most powerful era. Further west, the white-clothed Abbasid Caliphate fell, replaced by the most powerful black-clothed Abbasid Caliphate in the history of the Arab Empire. In the northeast, Yun Gaisaman was preparing his army, and in the south, Irai was also surging with undercurrents. All of these dangers could be triggered at any moment. But in the Tang dynasty, everyone was still immersed in the illusion of prosperity, unaware of these hidden dangers. In fact, when the barbarians were preparing their army and eyeing the Central Plains, the Confucians were still brewing a new thought in the court, attempting to have the imperial court dismiss its army, return its territory, and promote benevolence and righteousness, using etiquette to influence the barbarians, in exchange for a long period of peace between the Central Plains and the barbarians. This was an unprecedented self-crippling of martial arts. A tiger's claws were crippled, and a wolf's fangs were plucked out. 4 years later, when the barbarians attacked like tigers and wolves, when an even greater calamity swept over, the Central Plains would no longer be able to resist. 4 years later, when these dangers erupted together, it would be a calamity that would cause the southeast to collapse and the northwest to sink. this vast and glorious empire would completely decline. And the clan that he deeply loved would also go from prosperity to decline in these 4 years, falling apart and falling into complete decline. From a lofty clan of ministers and generals, it would be reduced to struggling in the mud. In his last life, he had been muddle-headed, only waking up when everything could no longer be salvaged. But in this life, with all of his memories and experiences, he would not allow this to happen again. Back then, he had pondered countless times over why this vast empire would fall apart in such a short period of time. If he could carry out the plan that he had thought of 30 years later, he would still be able to make it. But before that, he first had to stop another major matter that was about to happen in this clan. Little sister, big brother, father, mother, and the entire Wang clan, everyone was affected by this matter. It was precisely after this matter that the Wang clan slowly fell into decline, and it was difficult to turn back. After this matter, the people that he loved and those who loved him slowly left him after experiencing a series of events. And all of this happened not long after he transcended to this world. Just that back then he was still ignorant. But in this life, he would never give up. If he didn't sweep a house, how could he sweep the world? If the nest was overturned, how could the eggs remain intact? If he couldn't save this clan, how could he save the world? No matter what, he had to stop it. Chapter 2. The autumn wind rustled. The closer he got to the dining hall, the more nervous Wang Chong felt. Most likely, the more one loses someone, the more they know how precious they are. In his previous life, he was muddle-headed, unconcerned about anything and didn't care about anything. It was hard to imagine that just going to a meal would make him feel nervous. This should be the feeling of homesickness. Wang Chong thought. Raising his head, he saw 2 large doors with lion heads. In front of him was the dining hall. The Wang clan wasn't a noble clan, so it didn't have strict rules. However, it was still a clan of ministers and generals. Even though his mother didn't set down many rules, there were still rules of a large clan. There were many children in the clan, and no matter who it was, including his father, as long as they were still in the capital, they had to have a meal together. Everyone gathered around a large table and ate happily. This was the last day after Wang Chong was grounded. In the past 7 days, it was also the first time the family had a meal together. However, this wasn't what Wang Chong cared about. If there were no accidents, his father should have returned by now. Due to his official position, his father left early and returned late every day. Even though he was his son, he couldn't see him whenever he wanted to. After that incident, his father would quickly leave the capital and return to the military camp. He probably wouldn't be able to see him for at least half a year. If he wanted to stop that incident and change the fate of the clan, this family gathering was his best chance, as well as his last chance. However, would his father believe in him? Thinking of himself, Wang Chong fell silent. In his previous life, he thought of himself as a transmigrator who was frivolous and played around with life. He had done far too many ridiculous things. In the beginning, he wanted to be a wanderer in this world, so he spent every night outside and made a bunch of scoundrels. The Majo that his little sister mentioned was one of them. In his previous life, Wang Chong had a straightforward personality. He didn't have many scheming thoughts. He thought that they were friends and should be honest with each other. Who would have thought that these spoiled brats like him were so scheming? On the surface, they called each other brothers, but stabbed each other in the back. These fellows used his name to commit all sorts of atrocities outside. In the end, there was even an incident of him forcibly abducting a woman in broad daylight. If it was anything else, it would have been fine, but forcibly abducting a civilian girl was too much. Even his father, who led the troops outside and rarely disciplined him, could not stand it anymore. When he learned of this matter, he flew into a rage and rushed back from the encampment overnight. Because of this, Wang Chong was placed in confinement for 7 days. On this matter, his father was completely disappointed in him. Although he had been rebellious and abnormal for a long period of time after he had transmigrated and did some outrageous things, he had not fallen to such an extent. But forcibly abducting a girl, this had already challenged his father's bottom line. From then on, his father had completely given up on him and no longer cared about him. Wang Chong only learned of this matter a long time after it had happened. Being tricked by Ma Zhou and the other bastards using his name, Wang Chong was extremely depressed. However, he couldn't say these things. If it wasn't for his poor judgment, how could he have been tricked by others? With his father and mother's current mood, no matter what he said, they probably wouldn't listen to him. What could an ignorant and incompetent hedonistic son of rich parents do? What decent things could he say? Thinking of this, Wang Chong's heart was extremely bitter. He had to swallow the bitter fruit that he had sown. No matter what, I can't continue being a bastard. No matter what, I have to change my father's impression of me. Wang Chong knew that if he wanted to change his parents' prejudices, this family gathering was his last chance. No matter what, he had to let them understand that he was no longer the same person as before. He had to slowly win back their confidence in him. Wang Chong took a deep breath. He already knew what to do. Young master. The doors of the Lion Head residence were tightly shut. Upon seeing Wang Chong walking over, the two well-built guards at the entrance immediately bowed and greeted him. The two of them had the backs of a bear and they stood there like iron towers. With a single look, one could tell that they were elite soldiers on the battlefield. Thank you for your hard work. Wang Chong stopped by the two of them and thanked them sincerely. He recognized the two guards. They were handpicked by his father from the military camp and were stationed in the residence. A long journey tests the stamina of a horse, and time reveals a person's heart. In his previous life, Wang Chong didn't care about the names of these guards. Even when a huge change occurred in the residence and all of the guards and servants were dismissed, only these two guards and a few other servants remained. Until the arrival of the chaotic tide, these two guards died just like the thousands of others. Even until their deaths, they still carried out their duties loyally. It was then that Wang Chong remembered their names. One of them was Shun Hai and the other was Meng Long. They were the most loyal guards in the residence. Young master. The two guards stared at Wang Chong with astonishment in their eyes. In the past, this young master had always been arrogant and unruly. He would never speak to guards like them. Yet, this time, he actually took the initiative to greet them. This was the first time in his life. The two of them could see the astonishment in each other's eyes. Wang Chong knew what they were thinking about. He chuckled and didn't explain. Rome wasn't built in a single day. His previous image was too terrible, and it was difficult to change it in a short period of time. However, once the first step was taken, there would be a second step. Sooner or later, they would realize that they had changed. Placing his hands on the lion head door knocker, Wang Chong pushed it open forcefully and walked in. The creaking of the door was extremely loud in the hall. Smells good. Wang Chong walked in, and before he could even get a good look, he could already smell the thick aroma of food that made one's mouth water. In the huge room, there was a huge table that could accommodate a dozen people. More than 20 sumptuous dishes were placed on it. It's been a long time since I've eaten such a sumptuous meal. Being enticed by the fragrance, Wang Chong also felt his stomach churning. Thinking back on his 7 days of confinement, his meals had always been bland. How could it be so sumptuous? However, even though the dishes were sumptuous, the atmosphere in the hall wasn't right. Wang Chong was taken aback. Lifting his head to take a glance, he saw his father and mother sitting by the side of the long table. Both of their faces were dark, and neither of them were looking at him. Even though the fragrance of the dishes permeated the air, the two of them didn't move at all. Only the gluttonous little sister by the side had her head buried in the table. With a pair of chopsticks in one hand and a bowl in the other, she opened her mouth and ate furiously. Her two ponytails were trembling by the side of the table, but her ponytails were nowhere to be seen. The little sister of the Wang family had two hobbies. One was to eat and the other was to play. The first time Wang Chong saw her eat, he was almost scared to death. How was this a little girl? She was clearly a starving beast. However, thinking about her astounding strength, Wang Chong felt relieved. In the family, only his little sister was allowed to eat without following the meal schedule. However, in the past, when his little sister ate, her bowl would be clinking noisily. However, This time, her mouth was wide open, but no sound came out. Clearly, she knew that the atmosphere wasn't right. The entire hall was deathly silent. His little sister held her bowl, and as she ate furiously, she threw a pitiful gaze at him from afar. She could already see the tragic fate of her brother. Even though the little girl was innocent, she was extremely vengeful. She hadn't forgotten that her brother had lied to her previously. Wang Chong didn't have the time to bother with his irritating little sister. He knew that even though his father and mother had released him, this matter wasn't over yet. Father, mother. Wang Chong did not do as he usually did, silently sitting at the table and burying his head in his food like an ostrich. Instead, he circled around the table and stopped at the side of his father and mother. Upon seeing Wang Chong's actions, his little sister's mouth was agape. What was her little brother doing? Didn't he know that her father and mother were in a fit of rage? Wasn't he courting death by walking over at this moment? However, something that shocked the Wang family's little sister even more happened. I know that I was in the wrong this time around. In the future, I will sever all ties with those people in the past, and I won't associate with them anymore. Wang Chong lowered his head and said, Pakta. The Wang family's little sister raised her chopsticks and stared at her brother's serious face. She was so shocked that her lower jaw nearly fell to the ground. What was going on? Her brother actually took the initiative to admit his mistake? Did she hear wrongly? Rubbing her eyes, the Wang family's little sister confirmed that she didn't hear wrongly. In the hall, the heavy, and stone-like atmosphere suddenly loosened. At the head of the table, there was a beautiful middle-aged woman wearing a large peony green gauze gown, with her hair combed, looking dignified and elegant. Her face twitched, and a trace of extreme surprise flashed in her eyes. This child actually took the initiative to admit his mistake? Zhao Shuhua couldn't believe her ears. She had tried to reprimand him for this matter countless of times, but he didn't listen to her at all. He didn't even care about confinement and beatings. There were times when Zhao Shuhua felt that she was a failure as a mother. This made her depressed in private, but she didn't show it in front of her children. But this time, he actually took the initiative to apologize. Could it be that this child has really changed? In that instant, Zhao Shuhua lost her composure. She hoped that her child had really changed, but she was afraid that this was just her wishful thinking. After all, his previous performance was simply too poor. You unfilial son. Do you still admit your mistake? A cold voice sounded. It was Wang Chong's father, Wang Yan, who spoke by the side. Wang Chong's father had a dignified expression and a pair of blazing eyes. Sitting there, it felt as though a spear had pierced through his body, exerting a powerful pressure on one. In the Book of Rites, the father is benevolent and the son is filial, but Wang Chong felt immense pressure. Wang Chong knew that this was the result of his father concealing his aura. What are you saying? Can't Chonga repent? Didn't you hear him admit his mistake? Zhao Shuhua was worried that Wang Chong was just trying to cheer her up, but upon hearing Father Wang's words, she immediately felt displeased. It was a rule of the royal court that women weren't allowed to interfere in politics. Zhao Shuhua had never interfered in Father Wang's political and military affairs. However, Father Wang was often away from home, so the 4 children and the huge residence were all managed by Madame Wang. In terms of educating the children, Madame Wang had absolute authority. Even though Father Wang was the commander of the army on the battlefield, he wasn't able to influence Madame Wang in this aspect. Even though Wang Chong's head was lowered, he could clearly see through his father's expression. Even though Father Wang Yan's face was still cold and he didn't even look at him, his expression seemed to have warmed up a little. He wasn't as rigid and tense as before. Clearly, his apology wasn't completely useless. Father, you are right. Chonga was too mischievous and foolish in the past, causing father and mother to worry. In the future, Chonga will definitely turn over a new leaf. Wang Chong lowered his head and said, those words caused Father Wang and Mother Wang to raise their heads simultaneously. The both of them could see the shock in each other's eyes. It was one thing for this unfilial son to apologize previously, but this time around he didn't retort even after being reprimanded by them. This was as though the sun had risen from the west. It might be a coincidence if it happened once, but it might not be the same the second time. Could it be that this unfilial son had really changed and realized his mistakes? Chong, don't listen to your father. Hurry and sit down. How can you keep a straight face when we are eating together? Mother Wang hurriedly instructed. Wang Chong replied with an before returning to his seat. Obediently, he lowered his head, not moving at all. Since Father Wang and Mother Wang hadn't moved their chopsticks yet, Wang Chong didn't move either. When Father Wang and Mother Wang saw this, they were shocked. This child has really changed. At this moment, the one who felt the most gratified was Mother Wang Zhao Shuhua, who didn't wish for their son to become a dragon and their daughter to become a phoenix. However, this child's behavior was simply too heartbreaking. Could it be that their prayers were answered and this child had really grown up? Chapter 3. Wang Chong's heart is full of guilt. Wang Chong can see his mother's reaction. Just admitting his mistake, apologizing, and sitting upright at the dining table can make his mother this happy. It can be seen how much of a scoundrel he was in his previous life. In his previous life, he uncontrollably crossed over from another world, refusing to accept everything. Although they have always regarded him as their own son, deep in his heart, Wang Chong always thought that they weren't his biological parents. Therefore, in his heart, Wang Chong always felt a deep sense of alienation from them. This is also the reason why in his previous life, Wang Chong wasn't afraid of beatings, wasn't afraid of punishment, and didn't listen to instructions. Wang Chong always thought that this wasn't his world, and that he was just a passerby here. Everyone, everything, was just a fleeting cloud of smoke and foam in his life. But the facts proved him to be very wrong. Only those who have lost something will know how to cherish it. Only those who have nothing will know how precious everything is. In his previous life, after experiencing that upheaval, after his family fell, he originally thought that his past performance would make his father, mother, and relatives abandon him. But it was precisely them, in the most difficult times, in the most difficult, drifting days like duckweed, who never left him and always took care of him. As long as there was food to eat, he was always the first to eat. Thinking of his mother, who was less than 50 years old, with a head full of white hair, like a 60 or 70-year-old person, Wang Chong's heart is filled with a sense of guilt. At the last moment, his mother died in his arms. The moment that towering body fell, Wang Chong was shocked to realize how thin and weak her body was. Wang Chong's heart is bleeding. It was also at that moment that Wang Chong's heart was broken, collapsed, and thoroughly died. For the next 30 years, the living Wang Chong would be nothing more than a shell. "My mother, why are you so good to me?" At that moment, Wang Chong's heart wept like a tiger, and he issued a mournful howl in the majestic rain. That was the first time he cried in this world. At that moment, the entire world collapsed. Wang Chong suddenly came to his senses, but it was too late, too late. Perhaps the heavens had heard his inner voice and gave him another chance to start from the beginning again. Wang Chong's heart ached as he looked at his mother sitting by the table. "Mother, don't worry. In this life, I will never make you sad again, and I will never let anyone hurt you again. Anyway." Wang Chong clenched his fists under the table and swore in his heart. "Come, let's eat. Pick up your chopsticks and eat. If there's anything, we'll talk about it later." Madame Wang, Zhao Shuhua, was in a good mood. She picked up her chopsticks and picked up a large piece of soft and crispy roast chicken for Wang Chong. "Mother, you eat too." Wang Chong picked up his chopsticks and placed a large amount of rice in his mother's bowl. Madame Wang was worried about the senior captain, so she put on a stern face. Father Wang, who was dissatisfied with Wang Chong, also felt much better. Filial piety was the most important of the 3 cardinal principles and 5 virtues. This fellow actually knew how to pick food for his mother. This was a huge improvement. After causing such a huge commotion this time, he must have woken up. Thinking of this, the thought in his heart became even more vivid. "Father, Mother, I have something to tell you too. I hope that you two can agree to it." Just when everyone was about to dig in, Wang Chong placed his chopsticks down. His gaze flickered as he contemplated what he wanted to say. "What do you want this time?" The moment Wang Chong spoke, Father Wang's face darkened and his gaze turned cold. This bastard, after doing such a thing, I thought that he had changed for the better. Yet, a leopard cannot change its spots. He had said so much and acted so obediently just to negotiate with him now. He wanted to see what this unfilial son of his wanted to do. "Chong, what do you want to say?" Madame Wang wasn't like Father Wang. Instead, she was interested and asked in anticipation. Most probably, the one who trusted their child the most would always be the mother. On this point, Madame Wang didn't think as much as Father Wang. "Father, mother, I have thought about it for a long time." Wang Chong lowered his head in contemplation. Whether he could win back his parents' trust depended on this matter. Wang Chong knew that what he was going to say next would be extremely important to him. "I want to join the army," Wang Chong said. The moment he said those words, the entire hall trembled. In an instant, everyone in the hall was dumbfounded. Everything that Wang Chong had said before added together couldn't be compared to this. Madame Wang's lips trembled as she stared at her son in a daze. She wanted to say something, but no words came out. The impact of this news was too great. She needed time to digest it. Even Father Wang, who had been speaking coldly to Wang Chong all this while, revealed an expression of extreme shock on his face. He was a general who led an army on the battlefield. Even if MT Tai collapsed before him, he wouldn't bat an eyelid. However, the matter that Wang Chong said was too shocking for him. This son of his was too mischievous. He idled around all day and didn't have any desire to improve himself. He even made friends with a bunch of scoundrels. This time, he even abducted a lady, causing the Wang clan to lose all face and become a laughingstock. He pondered over this painful experience and decided to send Wang Chong to the army camp in advance. The army camp was the best place to temper a person. Perhaps, only the army camp could change this unfilial son of his. Even if Wang Chong didn't mention this matter, he was prepared to bring it up at the dinner table. He had already thought it through. Whether Mother Wang agreed or not, whether Wang Chong was willing or not, this matter was set in stone and couldn't be changed. He didn't expect that Wang Chong would take the initiative to bring it up. It was because he knew what kind of person this unfilial son of his was that Father Wang was deeply moved. He also knew that it wasn't easy for Wang Chong to make such a decision. Joining the army wasn't a treat. There was no need to talk about the dangers involved. If Wang Chong's previous behavior was just a little scheming, then joining the army wasn't a joke. A prodigal son is more precious than gold. Could it be that after experiencing so many things, this unfilial son of his had really turned over a new leaf? At this moment, Father Wang was overjoyed. He started to believe that his son had really changed. Wang Chong observed his son's expression and knew that his words had an effect. As someone who had lived 2 lives, Wang Chong knew that even if he didn't bring it up, his father would bring up the matter of him joining the army as a punishment. In his previous life, he resisted for a very long time. However, it was all futile. His father had already made up his mind and it couldn't be changed. In this life, since he knew that this matter couldn't be changed, he might as well take the initiative to bring it up. This way, he could change his father's impression of him and win back his father's trust. Furthermore, thinking about it carefully, this matter wasn't a bad thing. Just that it was worth considering how he should go about it. "Chong, you're still too young to join the army. However, this isn't a big deal. Have you thought about which place you want to join? I'll let them know in advance," Father Wang said. In the past, he had always called Wang Chong an unfilial son. However, this time, he actually took the initiative to call him Chong. From this, it could be seen that he was delighted by Wang Chong's decision. "Father, I have thought it through. I would like to start from the training camp. I would like to participate in the Kunwa training camp to hone my skills before joining the army." Wang Chong said the words that he had been thinking about for a long time. Kunwa training camp? Father Wang was astonished. He had just received news from the royal court that His Majesty had decided to set up Kunwu, Shenwei, and Longwei to train the youth army for the royal court. How did this unfilial son of his know about this matter so secretively? But thinking about it, This unfilial son of his had always been acquainted with scoundrels. Perhaps he might have heard about it from somewhere else. Why did you choose the Kunwa training camp? Father Wang quickly calmed down and said with a deep voice, there are also Shenwei and Longwei training camps. Kunwu is meant for the descendants of ordinary generals. On the other hand, Shenwei and Longwei are of a higher level than Kunwu. They are meant for the descendants of nobles and nobles in the capital. I believe that the training there should be more complete and of a higher level than Kunwu. If it's there, it might be beneficial to your future. If you have thought it through, I can use your grandfather's influence to get you to join Shenwei and Longwei training camps. Father Wang was only a general at the border, not a nobility. From this point, Wang Chong could only be considered as an ordinary descendant of ministers and generals. However, Wang Chong's grandfather was different. In the past, he was a meritorious minister who supported the current emperor to successfully ascend to the throne. Later on, he was promoted to the position of the left premier. His students and old acquaintances were all over the court. Although he had retired, his influence was still there. Father Wang said that it wouldn't be a problem to use Master Wang Chong's influence to get Wang Chong to join Shenwei and Longwei training camps. Wang Chong remained silent. His father had good intentions, but Wang Chong knew that contrary to what Father Wang said, Kunwu was the best choice out of the three great camps. The current emperor was wise and mighty. In his previous life, it was also around this time that he established the Kunwu, Shenwei, and Longwei training camps in order to select talents from the capital's generals, ministers, nobles, as well as the sons and daughters of influential families to form the youth army. Currently, the three training camps were just established and everything was still unclear. Everyone thought that Shenwei and Longwei's levels were higher than Kunwu, so they were the best choice. For a long period of time after that, there would be a large number of people who would rack their brains to join these two camps. However, Wang Chong knew that time would prove that Kunwu was the best choice. In the days to come, when the great turmoil came, the older generation of ministers and generals fell one after another. Almost 90% of the most elite generals of the Tang dynasty came from this Kunwu training camp. However, it was not good to tell his father about this. Father, I have thought it through. Kunwu is more suitable for me. After living in the capital for so many years, I basically know all the descendants of the nobles and dukes in Shangjing. Father wants to send me to Shenwei and Longwei. The others must also be thinking the same. If I go to Shenwei and Longwei training camps, won't I run into Ma Zhou and the others? Wang Chong could only come up with some other excuses to dodge the question. Initially, Father Wang was against it. However, after thinking about it, the incident between Wang Chong and those scoundrel friends had just happened not too long ago. It wasn't easy for Wang Chong to turn over a new leaf and make some progress. If he were to mix around with Ma Zhou and the others, it would be too late for regrets if he were to return to his old ways. Father Wang would lose his original intention of sending him to the training camp. Since you have thought it through, we'll do as you say. Father Wang said with a frown. Even though he didn't agree with Wang Chong's decision, Wang Chong's words weren't unreasonable. Thus, he reluctantly accepted Wang Chong's explanation. If you two have anything important to discuss, wait until after the meal. Chong, ignore your father. Come, hurry up and eat. By the side, Madame Wang was overjoyed to hear what Wang Chong said. When she first heard that Wang Chong was going to join the army, she had truly been given a fright, and her heart was filled with worry. However, when she heard that he was only going to the training camp, she heaved a sigh of relief. The Wang family was a family of ministers and generals. Since Wang Chong was only 15 this year, it wasn't unacceptable for Madame Wang to attend the training camp before joining the army. This was the case for all the families of ministers and generals in Shangjing. As the descendants of ministers and generals, all of them had to step onto the battlefield sooner or later. This was something that the madams of Shangjing had to understand from the very start. Wang Chong didn't say anything else. He picked up his bowl and chopsticks and started eating. I don't know if father will listen to me later, Wang Chong said nervously. Chapter 4. Without a doubt, This was the happiest meal he had in this period of time. Laughter could be heard throughout the meal, and Madame Wang's face was beaming with joy. She constantly placed food on Wang Chong's plate, causing Wang Chong's plate to be filled to the brim. On the other hand, Father Wang was no longer as solemn as before. Under Madame Wang's urging, he took the initiative to place some food on Wang Chong's plate. "Third brother, you're incredible." Upon seeing this sight, the Wang family's little sister was stunned. She shot a glance from beneath the table and was filled with admiration for her brother. She thought that her brother wouldn't be able to escape this calamity, and she was prepared to witness a tragedy. She didn't expect that not only did her father and mother not punish him, they even laughed heartily and rewarded her third brother. In fact, even her father took the initiative to place food on her third brother's plate. Even the Wang family's little sister couldn't help but feel jealous. She had lived in the family for so long, but she had never enjoyed such treatment. "Father, I don't care, I want it too." The Wang family's little sister pushed her bowl to Father Wang angrily. "You are a lady, how can you behave like this?" Father Wang said with a stern face, causing the Wang family's little sister to feel aggrieved. Tears welled up in her eyes. Seeing this, Madame Wang found it both funny and infuriating. "Here. Mother will give it to you. Brother will give you some as well." Wang Chong chuckled inwardly as he placed some food on his little sister's plate. "Thank you, brother." The Wang family's little sister's tears turned into a smile and she continued eating happily. It was as though she had forgotten about the previous incident. The entire family ate happily. "Father, I heard that you are going to meet Lord Yao?" Wang Chong lowered his head to eat and asked abruptly. The atmosphere on the dining table suddenly turned stiff. Madame Wang hurriedly shot a glance at Wang Chong, and the Wang family's little sister was so frightened that her bowl and chopsticks hung in the air. Everyone in the family knew that Father Wang didn't like to discuss official matters. He didn't like his family interfering in his affairs either. "Where did you hear that from?" Father Wang lifted his head and said calmly. Wang Chong saw it clearly. His father's brows furrowed imperceptibly as he looked across the dining table. It was obvious that he was a little unhappy with Wang Chong's question. Wang Chong's heart skipped a beat, but he could only bite the bullet and continue. This matter was very important to him. If he couldn't change this fated matter, then all his previous efforts would be in vain. "I overheard it by accident when father and mother were talking." Wang Chong braced himself and said nervously. Whether it would succeed or not would depend on what he said next. Father Wang's eyebrows twitched. Only then did he remember that he had mentioned this matter to his wife, Zhao Shuhua, once. However, it was only once. He didn't expect Wang Chong to hear it. "That's right, there is such a thing. Why do you ask?" Wang Chong's previous good performance was effective. Father Wang did not get angry. Instead, he allowed him to continue. Clearly, he was slowly treating him as an adult. A person who was about to enter the training camp and enter the battlefield was indeed not suitable to be treated as a child. Lord Yao has always been on bad terms with father. But this time, he took the initiative to ask father to meet. "I feel that he has ulterior motives," Wang Chong said carefully. Wang Chong knew that his father hated it when his family interfered in his official affairs. Such words shouldn't be said by a 15-year-old child, but Wang Chong couldn't help but say it. In his previous life, Lord Yao Guangyi, used official business to invite his father, whom he didn't have much of a relationship with, to attend a meeting. Actually, his father wasn't completely unguarded. If Yao Guangyi said something during the meeting, it would be fine if he tried to rope him in. His father would definitely reject him. But this Yao Guangyi was extremely cunning. He didn't say anything during the meeting and only dragged his father to drink, chatting about insignificant matters. After that, Yao Guangyi intentionally revealed this matter to the King of Song. The King of Song was a relative of the royal family and was involved in the Ministry of War. He was one of the few people in the royal family who wielded real power and had a say in the Ministry of War. Because of his grandfather, the King of Song doted on his father. The King of Song's contribution was undeniable that his father was able to reach his current position at such a young age and become a general with real power. How could the king of Song not be angry that his father hid from the king of Song and had a secret meeting with Yao Guangyi, who was loyal to King Qi? Normally, it wouldn't be a big deal. However, the king of Song and King Qi were currently fighting openly and covertly in the royal court. They were like fire and water. The king of Song students and old acquaintances in the royal court had been roped in by King Qi and had all switched sides. As a result, the king of Song was isolated in the royal court and his influence was greatly reduced. These matters were a huge blow to the king of Song, causing him to be extremely suspicious. It was easy to imagine how the king of Song felt when his father met with Yao Guangyi in private. What was even worse was that his father had a straightforward personality and didn't know how to be flexible. He clearly knew that the king of Song was suspicious, but he still said that Yao Guangyi contacted him and didn't talk about anything. The two of them just drank for the entire afternoon. How could the king of Song believe that two opposing ministers of the royal court met in private and didn't talk about anything other than drinking? Not only did his father's explanation fail to provide a clear explanation, it even caused the king of Song to think that not only did his father betray him, but he also intentionally humiliated him after defecting to King Qi. Furthermore, Yao Guang intentionally misled the king of Song and played a series of tricks by the boarders, causing the king of Song's misunderstanding of his father to worsen. He also believed that the Wang clan was opportunistic and, seeing that he wasn't gaining the upper hand, sided with King Qi. As the saying goes, the deeper the love, the more intense the hatred. The king of Song had a close relationship with the Wang clan over the past few generations. He was the closest to the Wang clan and supported them the most. As such, he couldn't accept the Wang clan's betrayal. This matter dealt a huge blow to him. It was even harder for him to accept than the betrayal of his trusted students and old acquaintances. The king of Song was completely disappointed in the Wang clan. When his grandfather was still alive, the king of Song still cared about their friendship and only stripped his father of his military authority. When his grandfather passed away, without the protection of the king of Song, King Qi began to suppress the Wang clan. In just a few short years, the once illustrious Wang clan completely withdrew from the Tang dynasty's bureaucracy. Without the proactive warmonger, the king of Song, there was no one who could contend against King Qi. As such, the Tang dynasty's strategy turned from hard to soft and inward. In the end, it led to the disaster that followed. It could be said that this incident was not only a huge disaster for the Wang clan, the king of Song, and even the entire imperial court. All three parties were losers in this incident. Even King Qi himself wasn't the final winner. The impact of this incident was so deep that Wang Chong remembered it clearly. The fate of the entire Wang clan and the entire imperial court changed from that moment. Even until his death, his father brooded over it. He said that his greatest mistake in his life was accepting Yao Guangyi's invitation and not explaining it clearly to the king of Song. Wang Chong remembered this incident clearly. In his previous life, Wang Chong was muddle-headed and refused to accept anything. He didn't have any feelings for this family. By the time he realized that he cherished this family and wanted to change anything, it was already too late. To Wang Chong, this was also a deep regret. In his previous life, it was one thing. But in this life, since he knew the direction of this incident, Wang Chong couldn't ignore it no matter what. He had to stop this incident. However, Wang Chong couldn't tell his father about this. "You are still a child, so don't get involved in this matter. I have my own plans," Father Wang said calmly, but there wasn't much of an expression on his face. There was a rift between the ancestors of the Yao and Wang clan, but that was a matter of the previous dynasty. Furthermore, it had been a long time since then. As for him and Yao Guangyi, there wasn't much conflict between them. It wasn't that Father Wang didn't know about the matter between the king of Song and King Qi. He didn't want to meet them, but he was worried that they would fall out with one another. After all, there wasn't much conflict between the two of them. At the very most, if Yao Guangyi wanted to rope him in, he would just have to make his stand clear and reject him. This way, he would be able to resolve the issue once and for all. This was to prevent Yao Guangyi from continuing to pester him after his rejection this time around, which would be troublesome as well. Observing his father's expression, Wang Chong felt anxious. His father was a typical military man. He wasn't inferior to Yao Guangyi when it came to leading troops and killing enemies on the battlefield. However, in terms of scheming and political maneuvering, his father was far from Yao Guangyi's. The two of them weren't even on the same level. Yao Guangyi had seen through his father's character and intentionally set up such a trap. If his father still harbored the mindset of, as long as I'm upright, I'm not afraid of anything, he might be caught off guard and fall into Yao Guangyi's hands. By then, it would be too late for regrets. Chongya, since your father said so, you shouldn't say anything anymore. Hurry up and eat. No one knows a son better than his mother. Observing Wang Chang's expression, Madame Wang could tell what he was thinking with a single look. Thus, she hurriedly signaled him with her eyes. She knew her husband's personality too well. He hated discussing official matters during a meal. It was already a miracle that he was able to tolerate Wang Chang's words and not lose his temper during the meal. The words "father has his own plans" had already expressed his attitude. This matter had already been decided, and it was time for them to stop. If Wang Chong were to continue speaking, he might really incur Father Wang's wrath. Wang Chong felt anxious. How could he not understand his mother's intentions? However, this matter was no small matter. If things went wrong, everything here, including the hall, the entire Wang clan and Big Uncle's residence, would be reduced to ashes. The entire Wang clan would be swept out of the politics of the Tang dynasty. His father didn't know of Yao Guangyi's means, so he wasn't wary of him yet. However, Wang Chong had to remind him. Even if he were to infuriate his father and be punished, he had to do it. Father, this isn't a small matter. I feel that we should inform the King of Song about this matter and let him know about it in advance. That way, it would be better. Wang Chong deliberated for a long time. After contemplating for a long time, he finally came up with a compromise and tactfully raised his suggestion. It wouldn't do to stop his father directly. His father wasn't a 3-year-old child. Being too stubborn would only anger him. Wang Chong could only think of a roundabout route. Instead of talking about Yao Guangyi, he would start from the King of Song. There's no need for you to interfere in the matters of adults. Father Wang's expression was cold as he stood up from the table. You guys eat first. I still have matters to attend to, so I'll take my leave first. After saying that, he turned around and left without finishing his meal. Mother Wang turned around and looked at Wang Chong with a reproachful gaze. Wang Chong could only sigh in his heart. He knew that it would be extremely difficult for him to win his father's trust with just one night's performance. But at the very least, he didn't get angry. Wang Chong thought to himself. From the looks of it, this gathering ended on a sour note. However, Wang Chong was well aware that given his father's personality in the past, if he were to talk back to him like this, his father would have already flown into a rage. This time around, it was already not bad that his father only had a displeased expression on his face. From the looks of it, his previous words had more or less some effect. It wasn't completely useless. As long as his father could inform the King of Song in advance before his meeting with Yao Guangyi, then his efforts wouldn't be in vain. This matter had to be done by his father personally. Even if he did it for him, it wouldn't work. If I want to succeed in this matter, I'm afraid that Ma Zhou will be indispensable. Wang Chong was extremely worried. His father's personality was too stubborn. Once he had made a decision, he wouldn't change it easily. It was impossible for him to change his mind with just a few words. This kind of personality had caused him to suffer a lot in his previous life. As a result, he was used by his opponents. Since Wang Chong's probing during the meal had failed, he could only think of another way to deal with it. No matter what, he had to stop this matter. Chapter 5. In the back garden, Wang Chong sat on a craggy fake mountain, deep in thought. He had been thinking for a very long time. The place where his father and Yao Guangyi met was called the Vast Crane Pavilion. Yao Guangyi was a cunning old fox and had long passed down a ban on guests in the Vast Crane Pavilion. At this moment, other than Yao Guangyi and King Qi's men, no one was allowed to enter. However, from the outside, the Vast Crane Pavilion was still filled to the brim with guests, and it was no different from how it usually was. Back then, his father was deceived by this facade and fell into Yao Guangyi's trap. Wang Chong knew that if he couldn't enter, it would be impossible for him to stop this disaster. The vast crane pavilion was filled with experts arranged by Yao Guangyi, and it was impossible for him to barge in. He could only use his wits and not brute force. "I've got it." Suddenly, Wang Chong's eyes lit up as he thought of a person. How could he have forgotten about this fellow? With this fellow, he would definitely be able to sneak into the vast crane pavilion. However, just this alone wasn't enough. "This won't do. The vast crane pavilion is filled with experts and I alone won't be able to do it. I need a formidable expert to do it." At this point, Wang Chong's brow furrowed. He was a member of the family and he knew his own affairs well. If it was in his previous life, he wouldn't have to go through so much trouble. Regardless of how many experts Yao Guangyi had arranged for him, he would be able to defeat Yao Guangyi with just his exceptional cultivation. However, in this life, he was only a 15-year-old child. With this bit of strength, how could he match up to the experts of the Yao residents who were as tough as tigers and wolves? By then, Yao Guangyi's men would be able to throw him out easily. It would be futile even if he barged into the pavilion. At this point, Wang Chong's frown deepened and the joy he felt a moment ago dissipated. It wasn't easy to find such an expert. Just as he was in a dilemma, Wang Chong suddenly heard the sound of footsteps. Wang Chong subconsciously raised his head and saw that not far away, a few guards were escorting his little sister, who was jumping around in the courtyard and playing around. Wang Chong was already used to seeing such a scene, but for some reason, it felt completely different in Wang Chong's eyes. "Sigh, I'm so stupid." Suddenly, Wang Chong patted his head and laughed. Wasn't he carrying a lantern to look for a lantern? Since big brother and second brother weren't around, who in the entire Wang clan could be more suitable than little sister? Wasn't he being blinded by a leaf? He actually couldn't see the expert closest to him. Thinking of this, Wang Chong couldn't help but smile happily. In the Wang family, Wang Xiaoyao was a legend. It was true that she was only 10 years old, but she was extremely talented and had extraordinary strength. It was said that when he was 3 years old, he could already carry a large cauldron. Wang Chong didn't see it with his own eyes. But since even his mother said so, it couldn't be wrong. Wang Chong dared to bet that in the entire capital, including big brother and second brother, there probably wasn't anyone who could surpass her in terms of talent. As for her future potential, that was even more lacking. This was something that Wang Chong had witnessed personally in his previous life, so he couldn't be any clearer about it. He knew how terrifying his little sister's strength would be in the future. The reason why she possessed such terrifying strength was actually very simple. It was because his little sister was born with all of her meridians cleared. Softening one's qi, like a baby, these were the words of the Book of Tao. As everyone knew, everyone had all of their meridians cleared in their mother's womb. But after they were born, they breathed in the turbid air of the world, thus causing their meridians to be blocked, and they fell from a saint to a mortal. All of this happened in the instant that the first cry sounded. But his little sister was different. She was born with a unique constitution. After she was born, her meridians weren't blocked. Such a person was 1 in 10,000, 1 in 100,000, or even 1 in a million. Due to this reason, no matter what martial arts she cultivated, she was able to achieve twice the results with half the effort, far surpassing others. Immense strength was the direct manifestation of this talent. But it was a pity that his little sister was still too young, and her personality was too naive and stubborn. When she cultivated, she would spend 3 days fishing and 2 days drying the net. But even so, his little sister's current strength was still astonishing. She could compete with those geniuses who were 10 years older than her. In the Wang clan, his little sister was without a doubt the #1 expert. If he didn't make use of his little sister, the #1 expert of the clan, wouldn't he be giving up what was close at hand for what was far away? More importantly, even though she bore a grudge and hated being lied to, his little sister still trusted him. If he asked for her help, she would definitely be able to do it. Thinking of this, Wang Chong's body slid down from the fake mountain. "Little sister, come over." Wang Chong beckoned to her with a mischievous smile. Big brother will bring you to a fun place. Third brother, where are you bringing me? The carriage rumbled, and his little sister peeked her head out of the window. Her eyes scanned the bustling city outside curiously. It was clear that her anger had dissipated, and all that was left was curiosity. After all, she was only a 10-year-old girl. Her movements were strictly restricted, and she wasn't allowed to go out as she pleased. It wasn't easy for her to sneak out to fool around with her little brother behind her mother's back, and she felt extremely excited. Hee, don't worry, you'll know soon enough. Wang Chong chuckled. Remember our promise. Without my permission, you're not allowed to make a move. Otherwise, don't expect me to bring you out the next time. His little sister nodded obediently, agreeing to it without any hesitation. She had absolute trust in her little brother. But soon, she thought of something and raised her fist in a threatening manner. Little brother, you're not allowed to lie to me. Otherwise, you're dead. Of course not. Why would I dare to lie to you? Wang Chong broke out in cold sweat. He recalled his little sister's fearsome strength. Just a casual pinch was enough to kill him. If she were to go on a rampage, he might even lose half his life. Yo, isn't that young Master Chong? Just as they were speaking, a loud shout suddenly echoed. He's here. Wang Chong stopped the carriage and a smile appeared on his lips. This was a tavern that he frequented. Since he was here, Ma Zhou and his gang should be here as well. Leading his little sister out of the carriage, Wang Chong saw a group of ruffian young men carrying birdcages and fanning themselves with flower fans standing in front of him. They seemed to have predicted his arrival, and they had been waiting for him here. Yo, young Master Chong, I finally get to meet you. The young man leading the group carried a bone fan on his back. He had a square face and large ears, and on his right eyebrow, there was a striking mole. Upon seeing Wang Chong, Li immediately strode forward to welcome him with an enthusiastic expression. That person was Ma Zhou. Young Master Chong, I heard that you were punished by your family and grounded. We brothers wanted to visit you long ago. However, the Wang family residence doesn't allow anyone to enter. We went a few times, but we returned empty-handed. Thus, we could only give up. Young Master Chong, are you all right? Ma Zhou immediately grabbed onto Wang Chong's hands and asked about his well-being. Those who didn't know would have thought that the two of them were extremely close. However, the disdain on Ma Zhou's face couldn't be concealed at all. I didn't expect that fellow to be so good at acting. Wang Chong sneered coldly. One's appearance comes from one's heart, and one's heart changes according to one's state of mind. In the past, he only thought that Ma Zhou's smile was sincere. However, looking at him now, he felt that he was an extremely arrogant person. In the depths of his heart, this fellow must have thought of him as a fool. It was laughable that he thought too simply of others in his previous life. He always thought that he would treat others with sincerity, and they would treat him with sincerity. Yet he fell for the tricks of these scum. As for Ma Zhou's words, it was the greatest joke in the world. Wang Chong went out to ask around, and in the past few weeks, not even a single mosquito had dared to approach. Needless to say, Ma Zhou and his gang. Are you waiting for me here? Wang Chong asked calmly. Ma Zhou was taken aback. There seemed to be something wrong with young Master Chong today. In the past, he was extremely passionate when he met him. Why did he seem to be much colder today? However, he might have been overthinking it. Ma Zhou didn't pay it any heed. Young Master Chong, didn't we hear that you are out of seclusion? We specially waited here to welcome young Master Chong back. Brothers, don't you think so? Ma Zhou gestured to the people behind him. The crowd behind him responded and burst into laughter, as though they were watching a circus. Young Master Chong, how is it? Shall we go? Ma Zhou turned around and chuckled. The disdain in his eyes deepened. This lad from the Wang family was too gullible. With just a few words, he managed to fool him. Yet, this lad still thought that he was loyal. He didn't know that everyone treated him as a fool. If there was money, everyone would play with it. If there was trouble, he would shoulder it. Where in the world could one find such a sucker? As for welcoming him back, even though it was to welcome Wang Chong back. However, Ma Zhou didn't think that he would fork out the money. Ever since he started hanging out with Wang Chong, Ma Zhou had never paid a single cent. Honestly speaking, Wang Chong had been in seclusion for so many days. His brothers also felt uncomfortable living with him. Thinking about it, they really missed him a little. Without such a young master, who would clean up their mess and pay the bills for them. At this point, Ma Zhou felt even more gleeful. Just as he was feeling gleeful, a slap suddenly came flying over. Ma Zhou staggered. Half of his face was swollen, and 5 clear finger marks could be seen on it. In an instant, the entire place fell silent. Everyone was stunned by this slap. What was going on? Ma Zhou suffered a slap. How was this possible? You hit me? Ma Zhou held onto his burning cheeks as he stared at Wang Chong in a daze. His head was spinning and he couldn't react for a while. Even now, he was still in a daze. Wang Chong had actually slapped him. How was this possible? Even Ma Zhou was in such a state. The others were even worse. All the rich kids stared at each other. They were so shocked that an egg could fit in their mouths. Wang Chong actually slapped Ma Zhou? How was this possible? In this world, anyone could slap Ma Zhou. But Wang Chong was the only one who couldn't do it. One had to know that the person closest to Wang Chong was Ma Zhou. If not, Ma Zhou wouldn't dare to fool him like that. But now, Wang Chong actually slapped Ma Zhou on the street. Everyone was shocked by this fact. No one knew what happened. It's mine. Wang Chong stared at Ma Zhou and smiled. The only normal person here was him. Ma Zhou, I treated you as a brother in the past, but you treated me as a fool. You can't possibly think that I don't know anything, right? What? An uproar broke out. Their mouths opened even wider in shock. Was this still the simple-minded and easily fooled Wang Chong they knew? Was he still the same Wang Chong who was used by everyone and treated as a fool by everyone? These words didn't seem like something he would say. Wasn't this change a little too drastic? Everyone was stunned by Wang Chong's change. They felt a sense of guilt as though their scheme was seen through. Could this Wang Chong have been feigning weakness in the past? What? Ma Zhou, he is Ma Zhou. Just as everyone was panicking, a strange cry suddenly rang out. The Wang family's little sister frowned and her almond-shaped eyes widened in anger. She didn't know at the start, but upon hearing that this fellow was the culprit who harmed her brother, how could she hold herself back? Welcome to Immortal Cultivation Audiobooks, your gateway to the mystical world of Xianxia. Dive into legendary tales of martial arts, spiritual growth, and immortal ascension. Here, we bring you full-length English audiobooks of the best wuxia and xianxia stories, from young prodigies to ancient sect wars. Perfect for fans of Against the Gods, martial world, and tales of demons and gods.